Okay, part 3 of the instrument cluster installation. We started putting all of our switches in from the old cluster here. This is our old original cluster. Removed one at a time, but we hit a snag on the headlight switch for the little rolling wheel that's the dimmer. So if you see right here, we had to take our Dremel and we had to cut out an area for the bolt that holds the thumb wheel. And I'm probably gonna need to talk to Dakota Digital about this. I don't know any of you other Mopar guys if y'all had this issue, but yeah, this was something we had to go in and Dremel that out. You can see where that was not going to bottom out on these legs. So the difference is when you look at the legs where the thumb wheel switch goes, it's right here. These pedestals are much taller, and however which way it's designed, these pedestals are much shorter. Therefore, that thumb wheel bolt, you see there, you see the pedestal lengths between the differences between this and say this. Yeah, we definitely had to Dremel that out. So one snag, but we got it on, and everything took our time. Everything else is going well. About to put the bezel back on, and then we're going to move forward with installation. And there it is, folks. We got our instrument cluster bezel on, and everything's looking good so far. So now we're going to go in and look at our tack wires and blinker wires and everything and start getting everything plugged in. I'll show you where I mounted my brain box. I've got it temporarily mounted so I can take it off, but I know how far to route my wires. So far, everything's so good. All right, folks. Well, we're back. Part 3 of our Dakota Digital HDX install on our 69 Charger. So, looks like we got the hard part behind us now. Now we've got a few more things we've got to do, but I've got to put the car up on the rack to do them. So before I get to everything else, I want to talk about do's and don'ts. So first thing is a mistake that I made here is, for one, I should have taken better pictures. Number 2, I should have had a factory wiring diagram set up for this car. So let me tell you one of the mistakes I made. When I unplug, the switches are pretty obvious. You can only unplug the switches in one way. They're idiot proof. But the wires for your signals, for your turn signal indicator, especially on a Mopar wiring harnesses, I know Mopar purists y'all gonna put comments about, I'm just not smart or whatever, but Mopar, Chrysler wiring systems suck. And I'm a Mopar guy, okay? It makes no rhyme or reason how the factory set up, for instance, the turn signal indicator lights, the bulbs. It's just the driver's side bulb comes off of a 2-wire off of the factory M&H harness that goes to the flasher. Good grief. And then the passenger side is a tan wire. So, it's pretty, I use my power probe to figure out, I got the tan figured out. It took me a while to finally find the bulb for the driver's side. The second stupid mistake, now it didn't have anything to do with the Mopar wiring harness, it has to do with me being an idiot. On a Chrysler, I'll show you here in a second, your flasher is just a push button. I could never get the turn signal indicators. It was always going off to the right. No matter if I turned the left turn signal indicator on, I could not figure out what was going on. Sure enough, I had the flasher on. So that was my fault. So again, don't get in a hurry. Don't make stupid mistakes that I made. So when you get started to do one of these things, and we have used patience, believe me, but you've got to make sure that before you start taking anything apart, you need to know what wires go where, okay? So we've got all our blinkers, our dimmer switch, all that is now nice and tucked away. It's all mounted. I'm going to show you here in a second. We're waiting for our wire wrap to come in from Summit. We bought the really nice wire wrap so we could redo the wiring and fix all that mess where it looks a little more professional. So get in over here and let me show you what we've got on the other side over there. And there it is in all its glory. Man, do I love this thing. I've got some fingerprints on there I need to get some soft rags and clean off, but geez, do I love it. I finally got my own Dakota digital system. So let's look at this thing. Just turned it on. Now we have not programmed it. Part 4 is going to get into where we program it. You said it says, please calibrate fuel. I'm going to talk about that in a moment because somebody put in the comments, Johnny Sanchez, I think, has a Super Bee. He wanted me to go over some of the fuel things, and there's a lot of options on this. So Johnny, I promise you, buddy, when we get it on the rack, we're going to get the ground wire mounted where they say to mount it, and then we're going to calibrate fuel. It doesn't have a full tank. I can tell you that, but it probably has a half a tank, maybe. I can't remember, but man, everything is working so good. Now let me turn on the parking lights. Now, how does that look? I mean, I just could not be happier. I could not be happier. This thing just, and then here's our blinkers. Okay, so you've got an option on this HDX system. Here's our left blinkers. You've got an option on this thing. Of course, looks like we've got a clock. I need to calibrate that. You've got all kinds of options on this thing, how it's lit. I haven't got into any of that, but up here, this is our factory turn signal indicators. Because I got so flustered, I went away. I was going to use all 4 options where it uses both these and the ones in the dash itself. What happens is there's a harness, and you'll hook to each one of those has to have a ground, and then each one hooks into whichever turn signal wire, I believe that was. But I had a hard time with that, so I didn't use that. So anyway, this is where we're at, and man, it just is so awesome. Supposed to be a light that shines around that, but I haven't calibrated it yet. So there's a lot of things. I think that's an option if you want that to be used or not. Here's something that's really, really cool. Now look at my oil pressure. Now I have accurate oil. I know because that's been verified with a mechanical snap-on gauge. And then the volts. The volts seem to be pretty consistent with what the sniper's telling us. Coming off the sniper. So excited. So, let me get out here and show you what we've got left to do. So as I mentioned before, we've got to ground our fuel gauge to the sending unit like they want you to do. We've got to play musical cars tomorrow and get this thing on the rack where our Buick's at right now. And we've also got to hook up our speedometer. So again, this is called a pulse generator in case you didn't know. And it just goes in just like the mechanical speedometer housing. Speedometer cable screws into your transmission. But this will plug it in. It makes it much easier instead of that stupid big cable coming through the back. Makes it really nice. So that's what we've got left to do tomorrow. Again, and tidy up wiring harnesses on this car. But I also want to add something to this. You know, this car has an M&H wiring harness just like Kevin's Dart has. And it reminded me, they don't give you any room when you go to plug in even with your factory instrument cluster, they don't give you any room to plug the switches and all that stuff in. You think that they give you a little bit more leeway so you don't break, we didn't break anything. We obviously took our time, but those are some things that could be improved upon. So another thing is, to be honest with you, on this Dakota Digital, all the extra wires and everything, well, I do like that it isolates and it takes more of the original harness away. You know, going back, I put the original harness in from M&H. I bought it from year one because I didn't know I was going to have EFI. I didn't know I was going to have fans. Didn't know I was going to have a lot of things. And had I bought a better wiring harness and an updated wiring harness, I would have been a lot better off, you know, MSDs and everything else. So again, when you have a car that evolves, make sure that you're building it according to something that you can grow into, right? So again, the factory harness is fine. The factory alternator is fine for purists, and you have a pure stock car, hey, it's great. But factory Chrysler alternators suck when it comes to running extra fuel pumps and fans and everything else. We're about to fix that problem. And when you go to hook up a lot of the, you know, your silly ignition systems that they have with all the extra things that can leave you on the side of the road, like ballast resistors and their ignition boxes and everything else. So that being said, my complaints, I'm sure going to have my fellow Mopar people that are going to chew me out, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. But I'm really happy. It's tidied up, and I've got obviously the wiring harness to finish over here. We're going to get into part 4, be into calibration. And Johnny, I did not forget about you because you're going to be part of the topic when we go to get this fuel gauge set up. So got to have a rack. I hope everybody's getting something out of this. We are probably 85% there. The programming, we're going to see. We're going to do all this together. So hope everybody has a great day, and look forward to seeing everybody maybe on New Year's Eve. Thanks, everybody.